नमस्कार। कार्यक्रम निर्माण सरोकारमा स्वागत छ। म एलिजा लामिछाने। हामीले यस कार्यक्रममा पूर्वाधार निर्माण तथा विकास निर्माणसँग सम्बन्धित विषयवस्तुहरू समेट्ने गरेका छौं। आजको निर्माण सरोकारमा हामी एसियाली तथा पश्चिम प्रशान्त क्षेत्रका निर्माण व्यवसायीहरूको अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय संगठन इफाप्का र नेपाल निर्माण व्यवसायी महासंघले संयुक्त अन्तर्क्रिया कार्यक्रम बिहीबार राजधानीमा सम्पन्न भएको छ। अन्तर्क्रियाको उद्घाटन सत्रमा उपप्रधान एवं भौतिक पूर्वाधार तथा यातायात मन्त्री नारायण काजी श्रेष्ठले नेपालको पूर्वाधार क्षेत्रमा पर्याप्त लगानी हुन नसकेको बताए।
Finance is not the only constraint in our infrastructure development process. We are suffering from various other problems, including the timely completion of infrastructure projects and also the quality of work. This shows that whatever investment we have made in infrastructure has not been utilized properly. Our contractor friends are well aware of this situation, and I believe that they can help improve the situation significantly. After assuming the portfolio of Minister of Physical Infrastructure and Transport, I have been trying to expedite the infrastructure construction work. In this connection, I have inspected a number of under construction roads and bridge projects. Problems are similar in the most of the projects. There are some problems which have to be addressed by the government. Other problems are related to contracting companies for which current contracting core culture needs to be changed significantly. In this arena, Afghan can play a vital role. We need to solve these common problems, develop our building capacity and change the core culture before we start new infrastructure ventures. Our infrastructure needs are very high. To solve the problem of public transport congestion, we need to build metro railway system in Kathmandu Valley to provide cost-effective emission reduction, related transportation, heating and cooling. We need to build optimized electricity generation and transmission systems. Other important projects are urban development and housing, industrial zones, and industrial infrastructure. Big infrastructure projects need big amount of investment. In these connections, we are looking for long-term soft loan from bilateral and multilateral development partners. We can also develop a modality of co-financing by three-tier governments. A number of projects can be implemented in public-private partnership model. This requires crowding in of substantial private sector finance towards sustainable infrastructure development, specifically in energy, transportation, and industry sectors.
पूर्वाधारमा लगानी विषयक अन्तर्क्रियामा उपप्रधानमन्त्री श्रेष्ठले परम्परागत शैलीको कारण नेपालको निर्माण उद्योगमा चुनौती थपिएको बताए। निर्माण मैत्री ऐन कानून नहुँदा निर्माण उद्योगमा समस्या देखिएको स्वीकार गर्दै मन्त्री श्रेष्ठले समय सापेक्ष ऐन कानून बनाउन नेपाल निर्माण व्यवसायी महासंघ जस्ता संस्थाको महत्त्वपूर्ण भूमिका रहेको बताए। भौतिक पूर्वाधार तथा यातायातको क्षेत्रमा विकास गर्न आफूले विभिन्न कार्यदल गठन गरी काम थालिसकेको जानकारी गराउँदै उपप्रधानमन्त्री श्रेष्ठले आफू सबैसँग सहकार्य गर्न तयार रहेको प्रतिबद्धता रहेको बताए।
Our rules and regulations are very stringent in favor of environment conservation. This helps in ensuring sustainable infrastructure. Sometimes delays in project implementation come from these provisions. This is a kind of cost we are bearing for sustainability. This should be duly compensated by carbon credits and increased access to climate fund. I believe that exchange of ideas and information and also sharing of experience in this forum will give us an idea on the ways of obtaining substantial investment in sustainable infrastructure development in Nepal. Distinguished guests and friends, we are the upcoming chair of the LDC, and we are going to graduate by 2026. And we have been discussing with the development partners and all the UN and its agencies and multinational organizations to help us for the smooth transition and irreversible transition from the least developed countries to the developing countries. So for this, sustainable infrastructure is must. Without sustainable infrastructure, sustainable development cannot be achieved, and without sustainable development, irreversible graduation to the developing nations cannot be achieved. So we are serious on this issue and the agenda. And I have heard to you all, the speakers, particularly I only did not hear, I listened to it attentively, particularly our keynote speaker. But I hope that I will meet you personally. And I want to learn many things from the experience that you guys have working in infrastructure in development sectors, infrastructure sectors, in many arenas, in many countries. So I will meet you all personally if possible and listen to you. And what can be done in case of Nepal, we'll try to do. And in this context, we have formed 3 task forces in our ministry. One, to reform the governance. To governance reform recommendation task force under Professor Dr. Rajendra Prasad Adhikari. Another task force to reform the infrastructural system, preferences, and its orientation, and the result orientation. For these infrastructure reforms, we have formed the task force under the convenership of Dr. Suryadat Acharya, who is here. I am grateful to him that he agreed to take the responsibility. And he is doing it very seriously with the friends that has been there in the task force. And the third task force that we have formed is the transport sector. To reform the transport sector, we have formed the task force under the convenership of former Secretary Sarat Chandra Pautial. So we are trying to reform the whole system so that result can be achieved on time and qualitative result can be achieved. So I hope that your deliberations here also will be helpful to us too, and in the future I want to have suggestions from you, interactions with you, and gain the knowledge from the experience that you have. So that is what I want to say. I wish the forum a grand success. Thank you.
सम्मेलनमा विज्ञहरूबीच सार्वजनिक निजी साझेदारीको विविध आयाम, खरिद कानुन, ईपीसी कन्ट्र्याक्ट, दिगो पूर्वाधारका सम्भावना र चुनौती लगायत विषयमा छलफल भएको थियो।
We have to look at the environment side, we have to look at the climate side, and he also said because he comes from the world wildlife friendly infrastructure, all this costs money, extra money. And therefore, what do you do with it? Extra cost. First, let me say this, that when I presented, I said 2 things. With the Asia-Pacific region, just for climate-proofing the infrastructure, you need extra something like 3.4 billion. 3 could be 4, it could be 2, but you need certain amount of money for climate-proofing, number 1. And in the case of Nepal, I refer to CNI Bidalaji's report, which says we need about 1.9 or $2 billion extra for climate-proofing Nepal's infrastructure for one growth scenario. Yes, there will be additional cost. Now the question is, we have to do environmental impact assessment, we have to do the climate change, there will be extra cost. My friend, we have to do this. If you want to have a sustainable infrastructure, if you want to build an infrastructure which is sustainable, which doesn't do the damage on the environment, etc., this is the way to do the business. You can't escape this. Internationally, globally, is a requirement that all projects should be environmentally friendly, also be climate friendly. And frankly, there are also times when sometimes you save money. If you look for the nature-based solutions, sometimes we have a tendency to say, I want to do this road, then I want to see the impact. We have also had many examples where you take the nature and you design the project. So in the process, you end up doing a better job, actually a cheaper job, and we have had many alternative ways of building the same thing, which we don't look at very clearly. Because the project mindset is, I want to build a road from there to here, that's decided. But my thinking would be, I want to go from here to there. It may not be this alignment, it may be railway, it may be something else. The alternative thinking is not happening in my experience enough. Even in the environmental impact report which we provide to the government, which is approved like a paperwork, the alternative public consultation is very weak. So we have to be able to have that mindset. And sometimes the project could be cheaper, but better along the line. In short, because we have the lunch, don't even have the idea that you can get away with environmental and climate proofing, etc., because your project will not be sustainable down the road. And you don't want to save this for something now which will have the disaster which your whole projects will disappear in future. I think that is a thinking change that will be required. But having said that, there are sometimes you can get cheap money. I talk about blended finance opportunities, and Bob Davis will tell you, I'll show you all the new monies, Green Climate Fund, GEF, adaptation money, and there are bilateral money, there are MFI money, which could come as grant if you can package this project properly. And that is the thinking change required. We want to package the project in such a way that we may be eligible to go and grab this free grant money. I don't think we have done enough in this country, and we should. Bob, you will explain that later in the session, and he will show you where the money is. So just wait to get the money from his presentation. Is that okay?
Yes, just
any more while I'm standing?
Our public procurement portfolio has already.
They used to charge according to time spent as per the labors, and it was a quick fix. Like, you have your desire, you prepare something, you ask the contractor to come and then start working, and then it was maximum flexibility in terms of execution. If you don't have a material, no work. If you have a material, you keep on engaging the labor and continue. So as the time evolved, as the need for development evolved, so we moved ahead with the cost plus, schedule rates, bill of quantities, activity schedules, lump sum, and then fixed price, or the lump sum EPC turnkey contracts. In the previous session, we heard the PPP arrangement, which is the ultimate, basically. You have a complete control. You basically ask the private sector not only get involved in the designing, but the project formulation and financing as well. So in the EPC contracts, what we have is basically a dimension which is going into the private sector, from public sector to the private sector. So some elements are actually combined together in EPC contract modules. Okay, so what do we have in the EPC? So EPC type of contracts, employer need to take maximum time to develop this. The scope drafting, the employer's requirement. We call it employer's requirement, where you basically list out everything what you want. And these requirements are a bit precise in nature, because contractor need to respond to your requirements in terms of price and the methodology how they will be executing. And then it's a shift of the risk from employer towards the contractor end. We will be talking about what are those risks and how these are being transferred to the construction industry, basically. this is a little change from the font which I had originally. Okay, so when we talk about the risk, the very first risk is the design risk. In the ad measure, so what I'm doing here is the comparison between the ad measure contracts and the EPC contracts. Because in the ad measure contract is the conventional way of contracting, which normally we are practicing here in Nepal as well, where the employer does the design, prepare a bill of quantity, invite the bids based on the bill of quantity, and the contractor wins according to the whatever is the price given, which is the lowest in terms of the cost basically and the price. So that's where in the ad measure contract, the risk is with the employer because they take the risk. If the quantity increases, then there is a risk for the quantity increase, which again is associated with the time extension as well, because for the execution of the quantity, you need more time. So that's how it works. In the EPC contract, what you do is you transfer this risk to the contractor. How we do that, we will be talking in maybe in the next couple of slides, how we transfer it. Scope of the work. So basically, we define the scope of work through the drawings and the bill of quantity. So basically, the bill of quantity defines what is the scope of work, and then the contractor understands that okay, I have to execute say 10,000 cubic meter of earthwork. So this will be the price. So that's how you define. But in the EPC contract, you don't do like this. You basically look for the outputs. That okay, I have to build this room, so my ultimate output is this room. So the quantity risk goes to the contractor. Now the contractor needs to design and then also estimate what's the quantity and how I'm going to procure and then finish this product. So you basically transfer those kind of thinking, thought process to the contractor. It's no more with the employer anymore. Maintenance post-construction. Usually in the ad measure contracts, what we do is we have a conventional kind of say 1 year for defect liability period, and that's where the contractor is responsible. But the responsibility of the contractor to rectify the defect is in relation to the executed jobs only. It has nothing to do with the design or the seriousness of the design or the accuracy of the design. Whereas in the EPC contract, what happens is, since you transfer the responsibility for the design to the contractors, so then the contractor is also equally liable for the accuracy in the design. So that's why you shift your maintenance towards, and usually in the EPC contract, you go for a longer period of maintenance period. It's no more the defect liability, the conventional 1 year defect liability, but you make the contractor responsible for a longer period of maintenance, ensuring that the facility is run and operated to the parameter which was actually given by the employer in the initial stages of the project conceptions. Now, what happens? I mean, why we say that you are shifting the responsibility for the maintenance by giving the longer period of responsibility to contractor? It has two elements. One, you make sure that the same entity who has executed the job is actually also maintaining it for a longer period, and thus keeping the facility up and running.
There is a big infrastructure deficit in Nepal. One of the ways of overcoming this deficit is through accessing climate-related funds, which are globally available. So this forum is basically an interaction to look at modalities, how to implement projects without affecting the government's own finances. Because the government's finances are limited, we were trying to raise alternate finances through public-private partnerships and through green climate fund relationships. So that's what this forum is about, and we had sessions pertaining to that.
आज चाहिँ आजको यो चाहिँ बेसिकली तीनटा विषयमा एउटा पब्लिक प्राइभेट पार्टनरसिप अनि अर्को चाहिँ एउटा इपिसी कन्ट्र्याक्ट भनेर जुन हाम्रो कन्ट्र्याक्टिङ मेथड्स हो पब्लिक प्रोक्योरमेन्टको त्यो इपिसी कन्ट्र्याक्टको बारेमा र अर्को चाहिँ क्लाइमेट चेन्ज द फाइनेन्सिङ द क्लाइमेट चेन्जको कसरी हाउ द फाइनेन्सिङ इट वर्क्स एन्ड वाट आर द मेकानिजम भनेर हामी तीनटा विषयमा चाहिँ आज छलफल गऱ्यौँ। अब तीनटैको अलग अलग किनकि पिपिपी भनेको अब हामीले पनि यहाँ पिपिपी भनेर के अरे वाटर रिसोर्सेस सेक्टरमा बेसिकली हाइड्रो पावरमा चाहिँ हाम्रो पिपिपी केही हदसम्म आएको छ तर अरू इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर सेक्टरमा आएको छैन र यदि हाम्रो लगानी हेऱ्यो भने अझै पनि इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चरमा लगानी धेरै कम छ। त्यो लगानी बढाउनको लागि अब पब्लिक सेक्टर बाहेक प्राइभेट सेक्टरको रोल चाहिँ अझ बढी हुनुपर्छ हैन। त्यसको लागि प्राइभेट सेक्टरलाई कसरी एट्र्याक्ट गर्ने त कसरी ल्याउने त्यो कसरी त्यो पब्लिक प्राइभेट सेक्टर के पार्टिसिपेसनलाई स्ट्रेन्थन गर्ने र प्राइभेट इन्भेस्टमेन्टलाई ल्याउने बारेमा चाहिँ यो भारतको एक्सपिरियन्स के अरे उसको एक्सपिरियन्सहरू चाहिँ राखेर सेयर गरेर अब यहाँ के गर्नुपर्ने के गर्ने हुन्छ एउटा गाइडलाइन्सहरू जस्तो एक किसिमको त्यो डिस्कसन भयो। त्यो एउटा प्रेजेन्टेसन गर्नुभयो एउटा हाम्रो इन्डियाबाट आउनुभएको डाक्टर चन्दरले हैन र त्यसको अलावा अर्को सेकेन्ड प्रेजेन्टेसन हाम्रो प्रोक्योरमेन्टमा अब अहिलेको पब्लिक प्रोक्योरमेन्ट भनेको सार्वजनिक खरिद हैन भनेपछि सालाना हाम्रो सार्वजनिक खरिद चाहिँ $2.6 बिलियन पुगिसक्यो। $2.6 बिलियन हाम्रो सालाना त्यसमा झन्डै 50% त्यो पब्लिक प्रोक्योरमेन्ट चाहिँ बाइलेटरल के अरे मल्टिल्याटरल डोनर्सहरू एडिबी र एसियन डेभलपमेन्ट ब्याङ्कको छ भने बाँकी नेपाल सरकारको स्रोतमा भएका ती सार्वजनिक खरिद हुन्। अब कुन मेथडहरू जाने त प्रोक्योरमेन्टमा कुन चाहिँ बढ्ता जसले बढ्ता टाइममा प्रोजेक्ट सम्पन्न गर्नको लागि सहायता गर्छ विदिन द कस्ट त्यो कस्टभित्र सम्पन्न गर्नलाई हेल्प गर्छ। यस्ता कुन मेथडहरू छन् जुन मेथडलाई हामीले पहिला सोचेर हाम्रो सार्वजनिक खरिद ऐनमा को पहिलो संशोधनमै त्यसलाई समावेश गरिसकेका छ तर त्यसले जुन रूपमा व्यापकता पाउनुपर्ने हो त्यो व्यापकता पाइरहेको थिएन। त्यसैले यसमा चाहिँ पुनः हामी इपिसी कन्ट्र्याक्ट किनकि हामीले सुनिन्छ दुई चारवटा प्रोजेक्टहरूमा इपिसी कन्ट्र्याक्टहरू भइरहेछ तर हामीले प्रशस्त एक्सपिरियन्सहरू अनुभवहरू सँगाल्न सकेका छैनौँ र त्यो प्रोजेक्टलाई अझ सशक्त रूपमा चाहिँ कसरी लैजाने। जस्तै भारतको एक्सपिरियन्स हेऱ्यो भने भारतको अलमोस्ट 50% राजमार्गहरूमा ती इपिसी कन्ट्र्याक्टबाटै काम हुन्छ। त्यस्तै हामी कहाँ त नगण्य छ इपिसी कन्ट्र्याक्टमा। अहिले एउटा ग्वार्खोमा बन्न लागेको फ्लाइओभर चाहिँ इपिसी कन्ट्र्याक्टमा भनिएको छ। अब त्यसका एक्सपिरियन्सहरू के हुन्छन् त्यसलाई कसरी लिएर जाने सँगाल्ने हो भनेपछि टाइम हाम्रो लक्ष्य त टाइममा सम्पन्न हुनु र त्यसलाई जति टार्गेटेड कस्ट हो त्यो कस्टभित्र खर्चभित्र बस्नु त्यही नै हाम्रो टार्गेट हो। र तेस्रो चाहिँ हाम्रो क्लाइमेट चेन्जको अब क्लाइमेट चेन्जको पनि अहिले त हामी पनि त्यो क्लाइमेट चेन्जको मारमा छौँ र जति पनि इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्लस भनेको इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर बनाउँदाखेरि हामीले क्लाइमेट प्रुफिङ पनि हेर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ कि अलिकति इन्भेस्टमेन्ट कस्टलाई बढाएर र त्यो खालको ड्यामेज अथवा त्यो खालको क्लाइमेट सिचुएसनबाट आउन सक्ने ड्यामेजलाई हामी न्यूनतम कसरी गर्न सक्छौँ भन्ने कुराको चाहिँ हामीले त्यसमा के उपाय छ र अहिले इन्टरनेसनल इन्स्ट्रुमेन्ट्सहरू के छन् त्यसका फाइनेन्सिङका क्लाइमेट चेन्ज फन्डका फाइनेन्सिङहरू त्यो फाइनेन्सिङको बारेमा चाहिँ आज विस्तृत छलफल भयो।
नेपाल निर्माण व्यवसायी महासङ्घका नीतिगत उपमहासचिव शिवहरि घिमिरेले इफाप्काको उद्देश्यमाथि प्रश्न पार्दै 46औं इफाप्का सम्मेलन आगामी मङ्सिर 4 देखि 8 गतेसम्म काठमाडौँमा आयोजना गर्न लागि बताए।
आजको यो इफाका फोरम र एफकानले जुन अहिले आयोजना गरेको अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय किसिमको फोरम छ जुन आज एक दिने कार्यक्रम भयो। यो कार्यक्रमले चाहिँ विशेष गरेर निर्माण व्यवसायी विश्वका पनि व्यवसायीहरूले भौतिक पूर्वाधारको विषयहरूमा धेरै नै तपाईको डिस्कसहरू भएको छलफल भएको छ। पिपिपी कन्ट्र्याक्टहरूको बारेमा इपिसी कन्ट्र्याक्टहरूको बारेमा इपिसी कन्ट्र्याक्टहरू कसरी चाहिँ ह्यान्डल गरिन्छ र पिपिसीको मोडालिटीहरू के हुन् भन्ने कुराहरू चाहिँ तपाईको चाहिँ बारेमा छलफल भयो भने अर्को विशेष गरेर क्लाइमेट चेन्जको विषयमा पनि धेरै नै छलफल भयो र प्रश्न उत्तर कार्यक्रमदेखि लिएर धेरै नै राम्रो चाहिँ छलफल भयो र यसले गर्दाखेरि अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय स्तरको कार्यक्रमहरू आजको यो जुन इफाकाको छ यसले धेरै ठुलो मेसेज दिएको छ। नेपालले यो ठुलो यो कार्यक्रम गर्न पाएको छ यसमा पनि यो हाम्रो लागि धेरै नै सौभाग्यको कुरा विषय पनि हो र इफाका जुन अहिले जुन हाम्रो चाहिँ यो अब यसपछि गएर पार्टनरिङ इन सस्टेनेबल इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर भन्ने हाम्रो मेन थेम छ। यसलाई चाहिँ गोलमा पुर्याउनको लागि र 2030 को चाहिँ हाम्रो यो सस्टेनेबल डेभलपमेन्टलाई राज्यको चाहिँ सस्टेनेबल डेभलपमेन्ट जुन कुरा छ त्यसलाई पनि गोलमा पुर्याउनको लागि यसले ठुलो नै महत्त्वपूर्ण योगदान गर्दछ। एकदम उत्कृष्ट सहभागी भएको छ, सबै एकदम विभिन्न सेक्टरहरूबाट आउनुभएको छ। उहाँहरूको चाहिँ प्रतिक्रिया लिँदाखेरि उहाँहरू एकदम राम्रो ह्याप्पी हुनुहुन्छ। उहाँहरू यसबाट धेरै नै कुराहरू सिक्न पाइयो, धेरै नयाँ कुराहरू आयो। यो इन्टरनेसनल फोरम यस्तो हामीहरू चाहिँ कार्यक्रम भएको थिएन र यो अहिले जुन नेपालले यस्तो कार्यक्रम गर्यो विभिन्न सेक्टरहरू धेरै नै खुसी छन् र यसबाट तपाईँको के भन्दाखेरि अब पूर्वाधारमा कसरी लगानी गर्न सकिन्छ, लगानी कसरी भित्राउन सकिन्छ, लगानी मैत्री कसरी बनाइन्छ, ऐन नियम कानुन नेपालको लगायत अरू देशहरू एसिया र वेस्टर्न पेसिफिक कन्ट्रीहरूलाई पनि कसरी अगाडि सँगसँगै लान सकिन्छ। साथै तपाईँको विदेशी साथीहरू छ, विदेशी मित्रहरू, विदेशी देशहरूको रुल रेगुलेसन के छ उनीहरूको बारेमा पनि धेरै नै इन्ट्रेक्सन गर्न पाइयो र धेरै नै राम्रो विषयवस्तु आइरहेको छ।
निजी क्षेत्रबाट हुने यस्ता कार्यक्रममा सरकारको पनि सहभागिता हुनु आवश्यक देखिन्छ, तर सरकारले भने त्यति चासो दिएको पाइँदैन। आजको निर्माण सरोकार यति नै। अर्को साता नयाँ विषयवस्तुका साथ उपस्थित हुनेछौँ। खबरभित्रको खबरको लागि हेर्दै रहनुहोला एबी न्यूज खबर। नमस्कार।